Hello and welcome to another video on the JJ Think Tank. I hope you're having a great day today. Mine was quite good up until now. Hopefully this continues. Today I want to talk about Wilfred Thesiger and his travels in the Arabian Sands, in the Arabian Peninsula of what is now known as Saudi Arabia. As we know, this area of the world has undergone a lot of change in the last 30 years, perhaps a bit longer, 40, 50, since oil was discovered there in the region. The Arab lands have become much more powerful and wealthy, and as a result, major cities have spread across these desert lands that are attracting a lot of visitors worldwide. It's an example, I guess, of the power of capitalism. How capitalism is able to transform a barren wasteland into a modern megalopolis. We've got Dubai, we've got Abu Dhabi, and Qatar, Doha, and I'm sure other cities that are similar to those ones mentioned. I'm not sure of the name of the capital in Kuwait. Maybe it's just called Kuwait City. I'm sure that is quite modern as well. But yeah, so why am I talking about Wilfred Thesiger today, and why shall I be discussing his travels there, which he wrote down into a form of a book. So he condensed all of his memories and thoughts about his travels in Saudi Arabia, and this is the book, Arabian Sands. And what's interesting about this book and about Thesiger is that he was the last great British traveller that experienced the real nature of the Arab lands, of the Arab peoples, the climate, the nature, the environment. And in this sense, he can show us another world that doesn't really exist anymore. And it raises the question as to whether there is even a possibility of exploring anything anymore in the modern world, because of globalization and interconnectedness of all the economies. Every place across the world has been, we could say, explored, but exposed, yes, to the world. There's no mystery anymore. We know exactly, using the coordinates of a GPS. We can use this to help ourselves in finding our way somewhere. Nothing is out of the reach of the matrix, as we would say, yes. And I guess in one sense this is a good thing, perhaps, because it shows man's power over nature and the environment. But at the same time, it kind of kills the mystery, yes? It prevents one from undertaking the risk of trying to explore a given area. Nonetheless, I guess we as people, we can still travel we can explore, but everything is more convenient. There's no risk involved, there's no danger, right? Really. Perhaps the only place now left exploring on planet Earth are the deep seas, yes? So deep under the water, deep under any sea, we can find an unexplored realm, yes? And sometimes I see on the news somewhere that a new type of fish, a new species of fish has been found, or strange life forms that live deep under the ocean. Perhaps this is an area of the world that is still kind of unexplored and offers the opportunity for an explorer to make his mark. But other than that, I don't think there is a place really. Of course we've got Mars, the planet Mars, but this is an option only for the select few of our planet, because at this moment in time it costs a lot of money to reach Mars. But anyway, coming back to Wilfred Thesiger, I'd like to share some of his thoughts that he wrote down in his book. And I began my article with this quote here: "No man can live this life and emerge unchanged. He will carry, however faint, the imprint of the desert, the brand which marks the nomad." And Wilfred Thesiger definitely was a nomad. He was a risk taker. Here we have him standing with a rifle, a falcon or an eagle, resting on his arm. He's got a traditional Islamic headscarf. Perhaps this is a scimitar here. And he really did experience the traditional way of life of the Bedouin people who lived there at the time. And the book made an impression on me. It had a lot of anecdotes that were interesting, and I'll share them with you now. So he was the last, as I said, the last great British explorer to witness the lost way of life, which is now studded with modernist high-rise cities such as Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So what's interesting about his travels there was that he visited the whole region by camel and foot. So there was no internet back then, no wireless communication. He didn't have a car that he could use, or a quad bike. And because of this, at the time there were still tribal rivalries occurring, yes. He had to, in many cases, act as a diplomat while he was there. But also he was at the mercy of the Arab people there, because obviously he was an outsider, and Arab peoples, they view all Christians as infidels, all European people as infidels. And so there were moments when he nearly lost his life. He also risked the life of his companions there, his Arab companions, because they were associated with him, and many tribes viewed his Arab companions as traitors, yes, because they associated themselves with an infidel. So this was an interesting part of the book throughout, noticing this and observing how Thesiger managed to always find a way out. But apart from this, obviously, through his book we experienced the harsh life of the desert, and because of this harshness, it forced the Arab Bedouin tribes to really develop a specific ethical system, which was of course collectivist in nature, but it was a strong brotherhood, something healthy, right? Something authentic. And Thesiger notes in his book that this is gone now, right? Because of modernity and progress that has happened since. So Wilfred Thesiger was highly rated. He was respected by the Arabs, and he was nicknamed Mubarak bin Landan, the Blessed One of London, by the Arabs. He was described as being loyal, generous, afraid of nothing. But upon hearing this, Thesiger said that he was nothing compared to the Bedouins when it came to some aspects of his character, yes? So although he did say that they were, in some ways, primitive if we compare them to the civilized West and their cities, he also realized that in many ways they were superior to the average man in the West because of the civilizing process in Western countries, which makes people, and particularly men in general, quite weak, we could say, weak and complacent. And this is what he said: "I shall always remember how often I was humbled by those illiterate herdsmen, who possessed in so much greater measure than I generosity, courage, endurance, patience, and light-hearted gallantry. Among no other people have I ever felt the same sense of personal inferiority." So this quote, it makes us think, right, about the benefits of civilization, the costs, what we as a people lose due to the civilizing process, and how we shouldn't be so quick to judge other nations, other tribes, other ethnicities because of their way of life, yes? Their particular way of life, their tribality, their tribal nature will also bring out other aspects that are beneficial, yes? Other personality traits, other character traits, and so forth, yes? Since the Bedouin had to live such a difficult life in the desert, it's no surprise that they developed such a peculiar character. And we could say it was both for good and for ill, because the life was so harsh. It developed this, we could say, fatalistic viewing of God, right? Because when we think about Islam, it is in many ways a fatalistic religion, because they leave everything up to God. And we can source this back really to the life in the desert. Yes? The Arabs were forced to become fatalistic. But then I guess there is some form of wisdom, right, in this perception of God, we could say. So before I finish, I've got a few more things that I'd like to note here. One is about the kind of social structure. So in the desert we had, as I said, various tribes, and there wasn't really one ruling authority above all of these tribes. They did cooperate in some ways, but also they frequently warred with each other. And so we could say there was some anarchy, yes? Alliances were constantly shifting. And of course this has changed now, because there is a government in place in the Arab lands, yes, and they are imposing their matrix-like structure, we could say, yes. The government in Saudi Arabia is even planning to build this ludicrous project called the Line. Yes, the Line is this long wall, we could say, but inside the wall there are apartments, shops, and other such necessities. Yes, of course, this is all controlled electronically. It's quite dystopian. If you're interested, you could have a look. Search on YouTube "The Line," Saudi Arabia, and you'll find it. And yes, it's strange, but yes, an interesting nugget of information that I found in the book as well was that the Arabs have their own lost city of Atlantis called Ad, and this city is found under the sands of Jaiman. This is just a random anecdote, a random bit of information I wanted to share with you. Because obviously in the West we have this myth of Atlantis, that kind of, it's like a myth that guides, I guess, certain cultures in the West, certain countries. For instance, when we think of Peter the Great and St. Petersburg, he created the city of St. Petersburg out of scratch, really. Or there was nothing there at the time, just muddy waters, swamps. But now, on that same land, we have the marvelous city of St. Petersburg, and he based this whole plan partly on Atlantis, yes? So if there is such a city as Ad, then I'm sure it will look something like Petra in Jordan, which I hopefully will visit one day. So I alluded to this before, but Wilfred Thesiger showed a lot of sorrow over the loss of this world, and we can relate to him in many ways because modern life is quite dull, it's quite bland, it's monotonous. At times we can be frustrated because we feel, what should I do with my life? If everything is provided for on a plate, man becomes bored. He needs to find something. He needs to find a purpose. And this ultimately led him, Mubarak bin Landan, Mubarak bin Landan, to disagree with the idea that the Bedouin world would become better off by trading this hardship, this poverty of the desert with the security of a materialistic world. Because it will be something they had no control over, and they would become soft, yes? But Thesiger knows that they had really no choice. They had to accept it. They were doomed to accept it. And I don't know. You can make an argument for both sides, really, for the civilizing process and for the more wild life. But this is my final thought. It's my kind of interpretation, not interpretation, but what I thought after reading it is that we could say that in many ways we are living now in a period of time that can be equated to a desert, yes? Because we have reality itself, the real world, but then we have this virtual world, yes? And this virtual world, in many cases, is becoming not more real, but as important, or quite important, or nearly as important as the real world itself. And this desert is postmodern life. The desert is our mind and our search for inner freedom. We are already in this desert. This desert is the virtual cyberspace landscape that is appearing before our eyes. And it brings to mind a famous quote, "Welcome to the desert of the real," found in The Matrix, yes? Uttered by, not Neo, the character, I forgot his name now. But you know who I'm thinking of. Welcome to the desert of the real, when that famous scene, yes, in The Matrix. And even in these times, we can still find freedom. We should always remember this. We can always find inner freedom wherever we are. But yes, this book was part of my desert series that I have on Medium. It was my third book to review. It was my third part of the desert series. And it gave me more motivation to one day visit the desert, yes, because the desert is a beautiful landscape and there's something there to be found. As Thesiger said, only in the desert, they declared, could a man find freedom. So, yes, that's the end of my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found something interesting. I hope you found some golden nuggets of information. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.